Welcome Beyond the Reiki Gateway. I'm your host, Andrea Kennedy. Like countless others, Reiki found me when I wasn't even looking, and then it ignited a whole new world of questions. This podcast explores topics of interest for the spiritually curious. Join me for discussions and special guests on subjects such as past lives, crystal healing, spiritual awakening, ascension, energy healing, and more, all to assist and inspire you along your unique soul's journey. What if you could tap into your own healing power? I'm Andrea Kennedy, and this October in Ann Arbor, I'm offering in-person Reiki 1 and 2 training, as well as a Reiki masterclass. You'll experience guided meditations, receive Reiki attunements, and practice hands-on techniques in a small, supportive group. Seats are limited, so now is the time to reserve yours. Visit mainstreamreiki.com and join me on this life-changing journey. Welcome to Beyond the Reiki Gateway. I'm your host, Andrea Kennedy, and today's episode is something special. Throughout Season 5, one message has risen to the surface again and again, a message about inner wisdom, personal sovereignty, and the transformative power that lives inside each one of us. This montage episode brings together the most profound insights from our incredible guests, all centered on empowering you to tap into and trust your inner wisdom and power. And stay tuned for an important update about the podcast and some exciting news. Our first clip is with Theresa Reed, the Tarot Lady, and she's going to talk to us and give us some suggestions and practical grounded advice for tapping into our inner knowing.
Inner guidance, it functions differently for everybody. For me, it is more about what am I feeling right now as I'm looking at those cards and sitting across the table from this person. What am I feeling? What's going on here?
What came first? Do you think you're psychic and the cards are a tool for you?
Yes. For me, it's always been the intuition. I've always been very intuitive. Again, grew up in a household with it. I would have dreams would have meanings. I would get a sign, I'd get a funny feeling. So that was always something that has been very natural for me. I've been connected to it. I was never talked out of it. A lot of people, what happens when kids have these funny feelings? This is what we do. I don't want to hug, Uncle Jim. You better go do it. Instead of honoring that child's feeling like maybe this guy's not friendly. We need to really make sure that when it comes to kids that we don't get them to lose that ability to connect with those feelings. So I was very fortunate. I never had anybody telling me again, oh, you're being weird. It was just like, oh, you had a dream? Well, what do you think it means? What does that funny feeling mean? So that was actually very helpful for me. So for me, I think the intuition comes first. However, if you feel like you are not connected to your intuition, tarot is the absolute perfect tool to get more in touch with it. A lot of folks, when they start really working with the cards, what they find is that they start trusting their intuition more. And when you trust it, it works better. One of the things I like to say is intuition is a muscle, and it must be exercised regularly in order for it to get stronger. And so tarot cards are like bicep curls for your intuition.
Can you give us an example of how we might do that if we want to strengthen our intuition?
Absolutely. One of the easiest things to do, which first of all is a good way to learn tarot, but also to strengthen your intuition, is pull a daily card. Pull a card in the morning. Just jot down whatever you feel. Don't stop to think about it. Don't even look in the book. Whatever you feel. And then at the end of the day, come back and reflect. How did that card show up? Did it not show up? Did it show up in a way that you were surprised about? When you reflect on your day, what do you see in your day that you might be able to say, oh, that's very much like the Three of Pentacles? That's really a very simple way to strengthen, first of all, your tarot knowledge, but also to really start, again, paying attention.
I always appreciate when our guests offer such great suggestions on what you can do to try things out on your own. And another thing from that episode that really got my attention was how she talked about the tarot deck that she developed for children and how they could use it to help them in developing their own trust in their guidance. Our next clip is from Nancy Rebecca. You might know her from YouTube. She's pretty popular over there. And let's hear what Nancy Rebecca has to say in this next clip about our senses. What advice would you give for somebody who wants to develop their senses?
The first thing is just to recognize it and say, I wonder what that was about. Wonder what that sense was about. Because I defined intuition as a hunch. I had a hunch, my gut instinct is telling me this, and it's hit or miss. It may come, it may not come. And as most people complain, your intuition doesn't come when you feel like you really need it the most. And then it'll just come up in these random ways. So it's like to start to notice it. And I always say, like, keep a journal, keep a log to see if it ends up turning out to be true. Psychic, I define as intuition, but with high level precision. And you can learn to be psychic and turn it off and on at will. You can learn how to tune in and go deeper, get much more detailed information, very much like remote viewing, where they can tune in and see a building and what's inside the building and what's inside the offices. That's psychic ability. Grounding is the first thing that I always want people to learn, is how to ground their energy field to the center of the earth, because our intuitive, this kind of high level sensory ability that comes through is like an electrical current that we can't see. And just like an electrical current into our house, it needs to be grounded, or you've got electricity shooting all over the place. For people who are learning, you want to learn how to ground. This is the cool thing about grounding. Just like electricity, if it's grounded, you can channel that electricity to your kitchen light and turn it on. Well, it's the same with intuition. You now have some ability to start to manage it. And that's ultimately where everybody's learning, is to how to manage it, because we've got so much information coming in right now. Grounding is the number one thing because it enhances your intuition. It turns the volume up.
Because it creates a steady stream of energy.
And a strong, steady stream.
Yes. And that's how we can amplify and carry more current.
Yes.
When she talked about grounding our energy field to the center of the earth, I knew she tapped into something that is of high interest to people out there. Even though grounding's pretty basic, it is a common question. I loved our grounded conversation, no pun intended, and that episode was called Learn Psychic Mastery. She offered a lot. So if you did miss that episode, please tune back in to that one for a lot of guidance that you can actually use every day. Maryann Weston also joined us here on the podcast, and she's another name you might recognize from YouTube. Her episode was also quite popular, and she shared a personal story about her cancer diagnosis and her healing. It was quite a journey for her, and that episode about revealing your divine blueprint has a lot to offer when we go back and we dive a little bit deeper.
When I was in my Orthodox life, if I had have said, I'm developing this policy because, intuitively I think that's how it should be done, they would have run me out of town. Again, you suppress those things for the environment that you're in. I stand up very strongly for using your intuition. Don't turn it off. Don't suppress it. Be who you are and give voice to it, because it's going to be always right. It's going to be a voice that will be combined with your reasoning and your knowledge and your experience. It's always going to be the voice that's right for you.
To me, it is our truth, that intuition part. And by doing what you're saying, by listening to that, honoring that, and living in accordance with that, I just think that's where we're heading. What you do and the things that I do, and you channel as well. I do channeling myself. And for me, it's about offering whatever it is. And people are going to respond. And that's the beauty, is the responding, whatever their process is, to what's shared. At least that's how I look at it. When people will accept more of their intuition as authority in their life, the whole world changes.
We are not separate from it. If we look back at this podcast and you see me doing this, which is juggling disparate parts of myself, it's bringing them together. That's what I mean about your blueprint. It's bringing those things together. And I think that's something we can all do. I think that's something we all should do. I know that Carl Jung said that he described intuition as using analysis and information that comes in through your conscious mind. When you use the intuition, it gives you the ability to see around a corner and fairly accurately come to the possibility that might occur. Again, that's what we do with predictions, acknowledging that we are human and there are, possibilities we may not have thought of. But intuition is such a skill. We all know. It's just that we have fear, a lot of fear. This is the soul's journey, isn't it? It's to look at the fear. We have ego propelling us in ways until we realise that ego is just a furphy. As we say, that's another Australian word, which means it's not really real. It's quite silly, ego. But we have it nevertheless. We fight to get ahead and we fight to win at this, and it's a constant thing. But when it comes right down to it, this is the value of my cancer journey anyway. Everything gets stripped away. You get right down to the bare bones. It's like you're sitting in the well and you really can't see the light coming in anywhere until you resolve your fear issues, your anxiety issues, your expectations. You really have to be in a humbled, almost innocent state. And I guess that is the moment when the spark becomes visible. And that's what we think of with life, isn't it? That the spark of life comes from darkness and then it grows. I think there's a spiritual movement going on now.
I felt Maryann shared so authentically and personally in our conversation. That one really stuck out to me, and I reflected on that for a while after we met. And her advice to not suppress our intuition and remembering it is our truth is very, very profound. I don't know about you, but human design has really kept my curiosity. It seems so precise and accurate, really. Emma Dunwoody was on the show back in August of 2024, and she gave us permission to be ourselves. And Emma is quite the expert when it comes to human design.
Because of my journey with mental health, and I'm always very clear to say, look, this is my journey, but I did have the most extreme version of that. And the way that the system dealt with me and disempowered me was awful. They took all my power away. They said it's genetic, there's nothing I can do about it. And it's just not true. Like, even if it did come down my mother's side, it doesn't mean I'm powerless. And I think this is the biggest piece with mental health is, anxiety is fear of the future and depression is regret from the past. And we're so stuck in these places where we think we got it wrong or we made mistakes or we're afraid things are going to happen because we don't trust who we are. We don't trust life. We don't love ourselves. We don't accept ourselves. And one of the things I love about human design, in all the years, the thousands of charts that I've looked at, no one has ever said, oh, that's a surprise. They have all said, oh my God, you've just given me permission to be me. I love that human design gives you the language to what you're already feeling inside. I'm not telling you anything new. I'm telling you the things that you already know on a really deep level and giving you permission to be that.
Emma's confidence and her depth of experience with human design was so contagious. I heard a lot of feedback after that episode from the listeners and everyone over on YouTube. It just made me excited about the whole modality, and it made me want to explore human design even more. I know a lot of people were inspired. And next up, we've got Stephanie Banks. Her episode was quite popular, and it was all about channeling the living, which I think was surprising for a lot of people. How can we trust the intuition? Do you have any guidance, any tips that can help people believe it?
Yes, this is such a big deal, isn't it? I can even fall into doubt myself. It's a very slippery slope. So intuition is usually the first thing that comes through before we start to run it up the flagpole of self-doubt and insecurity. So if you can pay enough attention to your sense for things, your inner sense, and that first hit, that first thing you get, that is usually the thing to trust. That's usually your voice of intuition telling you, yes, this is for me, or no, or whatever it is. If you blink, if you wait too long, then all of your thoughts, all of your fears, all of your conditioning from society, from culture, from family, from religion comes pouring in. And then we're in this swampy water of uncertainty and insecurity and doubting ourselves. There are many, many practices out there that will tap people back into their intuition. And really anything we talked about before, anything that serves you in being a clearer channel is going to serve you having access to and trusting your intuition because they're one and the same. Channeling goes through the place of intuition, comes also through the place of imagination so that you can see and understand different aspects. That's going to be the answer for you. Also, take stock of your relationships. That can really mess with your sense of your own intuition and your trust in yourself. Where can you create more love and more clarity for yourself in your day-to-day life? That is going to feed your intuition and your connection to it really beautifully.
Very well said. I think if more people could just trust their inner guidance, the whole world would be different, right?
Absolutely. And you know what else is a really good vessel for trusting the inner truth is the body. Your body will never lie to you. It's never going to show a disruption if none is there. It's never going to show a problem if none are there. So you can use your body as this beautifully, perfectly designed vessel to give you information and to trust that information that's coming through. By the time your body's showing it, it's usually been in process for a while. You're getting the latent stages of a disruption, but trust it. Always trust the body.
I have to admit, sometimes I just forget about the wisdom of my body. And that sort of reminds me about grounding. These are fundamental practices that we can incorporate into our lives that actually do help with our intuition and feeling empowered. And for our second visit with us, Carol J. Obley was back to encourage us to trust ourselves, and she gave wonderful and actionable advice throughout that episode. Let's hear one of the examples that Carol shared.
I know we've all heard this, but it's so important that it does bear repeating. Everything that you need, you already have. You don't have to go out and buy it, get it, obtain it, find it in a relationship. It's in here. And it doesn't take anything for you to discover it. We all have equal access to that, but it does require your willingness to make time in your schedule, 3 minutes here, 3 minutes there, to sit and enter into that sacred place, that garden of beauty that is within each of us.
You're so right. We think the worst, right? It's like, I'm lacking something. But in truth, you have everything you need and more. It isn't about that you're not good enough. You're actually that much more connected, that much brighter in your own guidance. And we often do that. We undermine ourselves instead of celebrate who we are. I hope Carol's reassuring and encouraging message resonated with you and helped give you a bit of courage to step into your own intuition and trust yourself. It was a wonderful episode. I always enjoy speaking with Carol here on the show. As we move into our next batch of clips from our season 5 guests, we're going to explore the topic of sovereignty, and Gayle Revels is here to talk about how we can define what we want.
For me, sovereignty is standing in your power And can you stand in your power if you haven't defined what it is you actually want? So I think sometimes we haven't been specific about what we want, and that makes it really hard to manifest it or do it. So it's like if you stay really generic, it has some value judgment. So, and I mean no value judgment with this, but if your goal is, hey, I just want to be happy. What does happy mean to you? Does happy mean I have a job that I love? Does happy mean that I have a lot of money? Does happy mean I have a healthy relationship? Does happy mean I live at the beach and I get my feet wet every day? What does happy mean to you? I find in terms of standing in your power, which we have to do to be sovereign, we have to define what it is we want. So it kind of falls into sovereignty in a weird kind of way. It's like sovereignty is, not having other things impacting our choices. But if you don't ever make a choice, can you be sovereign? Choices need to be a little bit more specific than I want to be happy. That can still be your goal, but how do you define it? If happy means I live close to the beach with enough money to not worry about it, then you can say I want to be happy because you've defined it. What is happy? If you haven't defined it, it's hard to ever have it.
I said it in the episode and I'll say it again. That is one of my biggest challenges, knowing what I want. And to think that once we decide what we want, that empowers the ability to receive it. That is a powerful, powerful idea. I think one of the biggest hurdles that we face is trusting in our intuition, trusting in who we are. And Mark Mezadorian addresses that in our next excerpt from his episode. And I love what he says about the guru. So trust. How did you trust what you were experiencing or what you were receiving? And I'd love to get your take on that.
So what we're talking about here is the rules,
Oh,
ultimately. How I knew it was working was I felt peace and I was able to be present. And that was not my normal state of being. So it was saying like, oh, this actually works. The question coming to, well, who am I when I'm doing that, as opposed to who am I when I'm stressed out? And so it was like a feedback loop. For our current moment right now, coming out of the pandemic, and what the pandemic created was everything now is unfamiliar. That the old ways that we're used to things being, the old rules are out the window, which could be very disconcerting. In that we're interrupting our quest for finding someone else who knows. We never talk about the evolution of spirituality, but we're evolving now. So like the guru, like someone else knows more than you, that's just completely out the window. And the energy now is, and here's your podcast, of let's do it together. Let's learn together.
yeah.
And there's no one way this works. This is different for everyone, but there are techniques and there are consistencies, which involves, in essence, our affinities, like what angel, what goddess, what guide, what musician, what ancestor do we resonate most with, what tree, whatever it is that we connect, that the world gets bigger than just ourselves. And we consciously interrupt that sense of isolation and trusting that spirituality makes everything bigger. It adds options.
In reviewing Mark's episode to bring you this montage, I recall how peaceful I felt with him while we were recording. He has such a grounded and peaceful presence about him. And what he shared, I think, invites us to reflect back on our own journeys. Who have we trusted in the past? And how has that changed? Are you coming home to yourself? Undoubtedly, you have come a very long way. And as we evolve on that path and come into knowing ourselves as sovereign, it is quite common that our relationships change. And Rhonda McCrimmon addresses that for us here. If I want to focus on myself, and I don't want to be anybody else's number one priority, but I want them to focus on themselves, how is that ever selfish? I'm not asking to be more important. I'm asking everybody to be the most important thing to themselves.
Yeah, but when that's a painful thing to do,
then you become the enemy, which is fine. That's one thing to know. When you're doing a good job with your cauldrons, you will become the enemy of in some other people's stories. That's when you know you're doing a good job, because you're like, you have your boundaries, you're just not being part of the story or the drama anymore, and you will become a villain for some other people, and you just got to be okay with that.
Yeah, isn't that an interesting concept? I think there's a message in there, right, for us. The message has something to do with we don't need to make everybody around us happy, right? We don't have to be the peacemakers. Their experience isn't our responsibility.
Exactly. And I think that one of the things to remember when one starts on a path of change, regardless of the modality, is that it's really hard to do. And other people won't want you to do it because you fulfill a very important part of their story. So you will be something to them that perhaps you don't think of as yourself. But when you start to pull away and they try and grab you back, a fight ensues. And it can be really tricky. I'm not saying that a path to resilience and happiness is easy. Nobody's saying that a shamanic path or a Reiki path or a spiritual path is easy. But where you end up getting to is with the 3 cauldrons, which is the modality I work with, is that you end up in a place of quiet strength and also forgiveness and also kind of love. So there are people out there who really don't like me, and for various reasons, and I know why, and I have them in love. I'm like, that's okay. I see what's happened here. I can't be that for you anymore, but I'm okay with that, and I wish you well. Don't be moving into anger and sort of retaliation even, because then you just end up in a new story. Just got to find your way to a new quiet inner sovereignty.
Sovereignty. Yeah, that's just one of my favorite words lately, I have to say.
The word sovereignty is the word for the center of the Celtic wisdom wheel.
Sovereignty is a word I still keep using a lot in my work. And Rhonda helped a lot of people give themselves permission to perhaps reframe how they feel about their self-care and how they allow themselves to show up in relationships and perhaps be more aware. And as we examine how we take care of ourselves, I think more people are investigating naturopathic medicine. And that's one reason I invited Dr. Sharnael Beyond the Reiki Gateway.
Years ago, I kept waking up in the morning and I would hear this voice that said, stop eating sugar. No more sugar. 3 days in a row. I wasn't overweight. There wasn't anything that I knew that was going on. I wasn't feeling great. But so after the 3rd time, I pay attention to that. I don't know who this voice is. Is it my higher self? Is it God? I choose to know. And or I did the thing, right? A month later, I was actually diagnosed with cancer. And we know that sugar feeds cancer. And they were giving me just not very much time to be on the planet at the time. Now, I reversed all that. But that month of not eating sugar and starving it out, who knows what kind of headway that gave me just by listening to that inner voice. And we get those inner voices about everything. Call your mom. Go get flowers for a friend. Make that appointment. Go give this away to somebody. All of those things. And I look at the Bible like metaphysics, and there is a scripture that says, seek ye first the kingdom of God, and then all these things will be added unto you. The kingdom is here. This is my kingdom. This is my kingdom. And when I listen to that inner voice and do those things, then all these things will be added unto me. Meaning a lot of people feel stuck and not sure and like can't make decisions and overwhelmed. And I tell them, go make a list of 15 things that you haven't done that you know you need to do. And as soon as you do those things, trust me, the answers will come. Even 5 of those things could knock out and clear what's going on in the field, because that information will be stored there until we follow that GPS. And then we start to get clarity and remember what it is that we are supposed to be doing about this or about that or with who. That's what spirit means to me.
Have you ever been guided to make changes to your diet for your health? Every time Dr. Linda Backman joins me on the podcast, I am always intrigued She speaks about soul design and wisdom and the fact that we aren't here by accident. So, actually, extending our conversation about sovereignty and responsibility, Linda shares this.
You guys, those of you out there, you agreed to be here. And some of you, the chuckle was, some of you are saying to yourself, what in the world was I thinking? You agreed to be here. The only reason that IPs and ARs come to Earth is because you carry a higher than average level of wisdom. And please, everybody, don't minimize yourselves. A lot of people are also going to say, oh, no, not me. But I know for a fact that IPs and ARs are always more experienced than average if you choose to come to Earth. No, you agreed to be here.
And if that hits home, you're not alone. Sovereignty doesn't mean perfection. It doesn't mean that we have everything worked out. It just means presence and boundaries and courage to walk away from who we thought we were, from our old identities that no longer serve us, and become more aware. Listen to what resonates and follow that. In our third set of clips, we're going to focus on embodiment and inner awakening. These are the voices of awakening. They remind us that healing isn't something that just happens to you, it's something that emerges from you as you remember who you truly are. Don't you think that people are so ready now, like never before?
Absolutely. We're in an evolutionary breakthrough. We're through the threshold. We're being shoved through the keyhole, but there's a whole room on the other side of the keyhole. And that's what we're in. It's like a birth canal. And it's beautiful what's happening right now. A few years ago, maybe 6 or so years ago, we started hearing this person would say something and then this person would say something that it was contradictory to that, which has been happening all of our lives, right? But it started picking up in intensity. And then they started blaming each other for saying something wrong or saying something false or saying something fake and all that, all. And so people were all of a sudden were like withdrawing and saying, oh my God, I don't know what to trust. I don't know who to believe. I don't know what's going on. And I felt like, oh my gosh, this is one of the best moments in our lifetime. Because when we don't know if I should trust this or trust this, you're going to be forced to trust yourself. You're going to be forced to look within to see, like, I don't know. I don't know if that's true or that's true. I'm just going to do this because it just feels right to me. And it's like the universe is saying, hallelujah, hallelujah. All the drama is paying off because we want to get aligned with the deep core true self. The mind is supposed to come back home onto the self. That's why this subject exercise is so helpful. Oh my gosh, I didn't realize that all the time I'm just throwing my energy away. I'm just giving it away. I got to come back here physically, literally physically bring that energy back into my own body and start breathing up and down this whole central channel that connects all these levels of consciousness of the different chakras, the energy centers. The central channel is the intersection with how we do that. And it's all because we're here to integrate. We're here to pull it in, to pull it home, to land the plane and to be our true authentic selves without question. But it's not just a mental and emotional exercise. It's physical. It's physiological. Of all the places that we could go, we've come to the physical dimension. And there's a reason that we're here. Our physical body plays a huge role in how we're going to be successful at why we came. We came here to awaken to the truth of who we are while we're in the chaos. So when the chaos is bigger than life, now's your moment. Now's your moment. We're ready for this or it wouldn't be happening. We're ready to make better decisions based on our deep gut truth, our deep core wisdom, our deep internal knowledge, being grounded in our bodies enough to know what's in our heart of hearts.
I'm not kidding when I tell you, I could have listened to Dr. Sue Morter all day. I was so honored that she came on the show and the wisdom that she shared, the insight, and again, with her practical way of describing things. She offered so much so that we could align with our core truth. And continuing our discussion about waking up and changing, Tara McAmis joined us to speak about actual changes in our energy system that she's seeing in her work.
Oh, yes, our whole system is changing. And if we think about how it's changing, if we are moving into higher levels of energy frequency on the planet, we've seen the sun bringing in more energy, and we know that we are elevating, we're ascending, we're evolving at lightning speed, I often say, because it's an evolution of our energy system. And our chakras, I think, are one of the most fascinating parts, because talking about the sovereignty, that's what's happening within our system. We are claiming greater sovereignty over our own energy system. We're becoming more independent of the collective, which ironically allows us to be more interdependent with the collective. We are consciously participating. Therefore, we are more responsible and we have more freedom. So with our chakras, they started out way back when, as we evolved from primates, and animals have chakra systems, and many of those our animal Reiki and animal energy healers know this. Those chakras, little points, little balls of light throughout our spine, our higher self channel. And as we have evolved onto two legs and standing upright, they started coming together more in the system. And as we gained individual consciousness, we started thinking about our world and how we are separate from it, how we can interact with it. We start finding that we have influence over it. Those little balls of light started expanding out because we started claiming more responsibility, more sovereignty over our bodies, right? For many eons, they have been, a lot of people see them as cones coming out or just larger balls of light. But what they're really becoming is wheels. I call them wheels, chakra wheels. And they spin around our higher self channel. And as they spin, slowly evolving from these balls, turning into wheels, they spin counterclockwise, slightly spiraling upward into ascension, counterclockwise, unwinding into higher self. And they become, as they integrate with one another, a pillar of light, a beautiful pillar of light all around us, which gives us more individualness and more power. And also, that is the pillar of light that we're to shine out into the world and light for others.
Some people are more on a spiritual path, more awake than other people. Does that mean that their energy centers, their chakras, their pituitary, they're changing, and maybe other people who aren't on that path, theirs are not? Or are we all changing?
Oh, we're all changing because we're all part of a planet that's evolving at lightning speed, right? I mean, and I always say this too. If you're living, the essence of life is growth. And the one essential component of growth is change. You cannot grow without changing. So if you're here alive, you are growing and changing. At the rate and at the depth is entirely your choice. That's the free will.
I think for me, what Tara described was my first inkling that we're entering into a time of redefinition. You know, we think we know what our energy system is. It's been based on past observations, past written word put down by other people in print. And we've learned from that. I think we're in an age now, though, and I think what Tara shares is proof that we need to open up our awareness and start looking. What truth do we know today? And what truth and information is coming through our own awareness? What are we ready to open up to know? Mark Mezadorian returns to help us unplug, disconnect from the field, and gives us a practical way to do that in our practice. When you mentioned the guru, wow, isn't that so true, right? The age of the guru, I've been saying that to people. That's over with.
It's over with.
Yeah. And I think so many of our listeners and our viewers on YouTube totally get that too. And the times have changed through the pandemic. It's been wonderful. It wasn't all wonderful. Let's be real. As with everything, there were positives and negatives there, but huge growth potential, huge awareness potential for people if they're ready for that. But your awakening was well before the pandemic, right? But I love what you said. You said you noticed how you felt different. That is underlining for me a great message. If you could speak to this, and we were really already talking about it, but the trusting of yourself. So if we say the guru and all of that stuff, that's all over. Okay, then what is the new way of being then? What are we moving toward? And so if you could speak a little bit about that, because you were really ahead of the curve on that from my perspective.
That we are included, all of us are included in all the good in the universe. And what is collapsing now is the old models of power, where it's just for a few people. Only a few people can tune in. And that we're looking for someone else who knows. And so this gets into a space of immediacy of what is it like for each of us to connect in some way. Thank you, angels, for this wonderful day. Thank you for all my encounters and environments being filled with love. To have an intention and to trust that it's okay to have an intention. It's okay for the world to get bigger. And that it's okay to have a say in our own lives. And to trust that we are included. That when we ask for help, the help will come. And perhaps it's best not to prescribe what the help should look like, but to put forward that intention.
We have practices that we employ on our awakening journey, but where do we live? What places really call us? And can we ascend further or evolve faster if we live in a certain place? These kinds of questions are what came up when I spoke to Helena Woods. And let's hear what she has to say about places and their effect on us.
The places that people feel drawn to intuitively, they often have really cool things on their map there. So places where people don't feel drawn to, there's either no lines there or they've got some hard lines there. And I really believe that as long as we're listening to our intuition, that intuition is going to guide us where we're meant to go. But the astrology and the astrocartography is a mirror. It's a reflection of that which already is. So we already know what we feel drawn to or where we feel called to go, but the map is just confirming and showing us the practicality of it.
Don't we often need a little validation or something?
Yeah.
Intuition, more and more people are tapping into that. And I still hear, though, people say, I don't know, it seems like I'm making it up. But I could see the real value of having a chart. And if you're going to pick up your whole life and move somewhere, especially overseas, to a whole new country.
Yeah.
Woo, I would feel better having it mapped out and having some reassurance there for sure.
And that's why I got into astrocartography, is because this gives people more confirmation and just an objective, unbiased perspective on the story of a place for someone.
I'd love to hear from you if, like me, you were trying to figure out where you need to move on the planet after hearing Helena in that episode. It really got me thinking. And here's Gayle Revels one more time to help guide us a little bit further, stepping into our sovereignty and claiming the power of who we are.
It's not that you don't need help, but you still have to have some sovereignty. You're not claiming your own body, your own energy field. Some things we need help with. Some things we just have to do ourselves.
That's really true.
Like a sign that you're not doing your own work is a problem that never goes away. It's a funny sign because sometimes the problem that never goes away may mean you have a big structural problem. Maybe it's a curse, maybe it's a being. But if you have done the structural work, or the opposite, you've done the mindset work, you've been to therapy, you've done the meditation groups, you're a guru and all sorts of different self-help things, and it doesn't ever work. Those are my favorite clients, honestly, because they're the ones that do have the effect of the magic pill because they've done all the work. I just removed the curse. You've done all the rest of your work. It's clear. It's clear forever. You never have to think about it again. Those are the people who are like, you changed my life. I did one piece of it, but it's all the other work that they've been doing that makes it so. If you show up with me as the first thing and you haven't done the rest, you're like, it didn't work. And it's like, well, actually, it's always a combination of all the things we've been doing. Sure, I love it when I'm a miracle, but it's never just me.
I love that we're actually talking about this because I think it's so relatable and so true. And I think probably most people could see where they've done this in their own life, whether it's healing or ab rollers or, whatever. Do you want the power or don't you? Right? You can't have it both ways. How I kind of put it to people is I say, you don't come into this life as a leaf on a stream. You come into this life with free will, and it's baked in that you get to decide. I really do believe that. It can take people a long time to realize that or be ready to realize that. And I think, too, it can be scary for people because if they're not the victim of this, that, and the next, uh-oh.
If it's not somebody else's fault, then it has to be mine, and nobody wants it to be mine.
That's right. Nobody wants that. And then that means every day after that, you're living with that awareness. There's a standard then for yourself to show up, to be responsible. You're just not asleep anymore. Sleeping time's over.
Yeah, wake up. The guys are saying, hey, wake up.
As we wind down season 5 with these selections from our amazing guests, I hope that you have taken some time to reflect on your own journey, taken a moment to just breathe and be, and trust yourself a bit more. The truth is already within you. The guru, that's actually you. The healer, that's you too. The one you've been waiting for has always been right there with you. And now to the exciting news that I wanted to share. This episode marks the end of Beyond the Reiki Gateway, but it's not the end of the podcast. We're evolving, and the next episode will be under a new name. What resonates? It's the same show that you love, great guests, inspiring conversations, and powerful insights, but with a new name that reflects how we've grown together. I can't wait to explore this next chapter with you, and I'm so grateful you're here as we continue the journey. Tune in October 8th for an exciting conversation and a warm welcome where we'll be asking you, what resonates? Thank you for listening, and you can check the show notes or visit the website beyondthereikigateway.com to find out more about the podcast and connect with me. Please keep in mind that views and opinions expressed in the show don't necessarily reflect those of the podcast or anyone affiliated with its production or advertising. This program is presented for your entertainment only, and all information provided is to be utilized at the listener's own discretion. I, along with the BTRG team, hope you enjoy the show as much as we enjoy making it for you. Wishing you highest blessings until we meet again beyond the Reiki Gateway.